welcome to the show. I honestly could never have enough time to talk about everything that is going on now for senators, for the Democratic Party, for America as a whole. But let's jump straight into the Kavanaugh hearings. Many Senate Democrats have said, they've already made up their minds on Kavanaugh, right? But Senate Democrats are not in a position where they can stop Kavanaugh. Let's start with the most important question for me, and that is, why do you feel that Kavanaugh shouldn't be on the Supreme Court?
We are in a moment in time like no other, and the president has basically handpicked someone who has this expansive view of presidential power right when we're in the middle of a special counsel investigation. This is a nominee, Judge Kavanaugh, who basically has said that he doesn't like the special counsel statute. He said that a president on his own should be able to declare laws unconstitutional. He has said that a president shouldn't be subject to a criminal investigation. And This was who he picked. So you have those issues, and then you have the really bread and butter issues for people in their everyday lives. And I don't think that those have gotten enough attention. I focused on those in the hearing. He was the dissent on the net neutrality rules, right? When Democrat, Republican appointed judges all were for him, he said that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau should be unconstitutional. This is a bureau that's given back $12 billion to the American people. So you see extreme views for a seat that's been held by Justice Kennedy, the man who wrote the decision on gay marriage, that allowed for gay marriage for this country, the man who was the deciding vote on the case that affirmed Roe v. Wade. And so this is why this should matter to all Americans.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because that has become one of the key discussions that Americans are having, and that is, any conservative president would have elected a conservative justice or would have nominated one. But in this instance, you have a justice who people fear would go back and overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, he said in the hearings he respects precedents. I feel like you don't believe that.
Well, they all say they respect precedent, and then look what's been happening, right? We've got Citizens United. You've got overturning cases left and right. The nominee Gorsuch, who's now a justice, said he respected precedent, and then just in the last few months, he did a dissent with Justice Thomas questioning the reasonable expectation of privacy. So I have a reason that I'm suspicious here. But when it comes to Roe v. Wade, he has identified Brown v. Board of Education, very important opinion, as one of the top 4 opinions of our lifetimes, right? Well, that one is clearly settled law to him. But when you ask about Roe v. Wade, which is now 45 years old, he will not say that it's settled law. He only will say that it's precedent. So yes, we are very concerned.
Now, you're in an interesting time when Democrats, and correct me if I'm wrong, don't seem to be able to actually do anything about this. You cannot block him. You've said that you regret going nuclear, previously blocking Trump's previous, federal appointees. Do you think the Democrats are in a tough position where you're going to have to figure out which battles to fight and why? Do you feel like you should have let some of those judges go to fight for the bigger judge battle?
Well, I think, first of all, it's very important to know that we kept the 60-vote threshold in for the Supreme Court, and it was the Republicans that changed it with the last nominee. And the reason we made that change, and it was a hard decision, was because we anticipated they were going to change it anyway, and then President Obama wasn't going to be able to get any of his judges through. But when it comes to this moment in time, you look at the past. Judge Bork, he never got on the Supreme Court. He had a hearing. So things change, things happen. You look at the Affordable Care Act, right? Everyone thought it was going to be repealed. Well, guess what happened? We got joined by 3 Republicans, and the Affordable Care Act is still the law of the land. So things happen, and you just don't give up. You persist.
You speak about flipping a Republican or 2. Am I correct in understanding you need just one person to flip on Kavanaugh? Most people seem to be focusing on Senator Susan Collins. People are saying, as a woman, of all people, we feel like you should be on our side on this issue. Now, I know that the 2 of you are friends. I don't know what the depth of your friendship is, but do you speak to her offline about this, or do you see a world where there's something that could shape her opinion to shift it away from the Republican vote?
Well, of course, I talked to her about this. And by the way, she was one of those votes for the Affordable Care Act. And When you look at that, you say, well, there's a pre-existing condition case where the administration has argued to strike that down so people can't be protected. They could be kicked off their insurance if they have a pre-existing condition. Those are arguments that you make. But I will note, for a change, it would be nice to say maybe some guys could also flip their votes.
Definitely.
I mean, it's just that everything is on the women all the time. So I think all of them are going to have to look at what they're doing here.
Right, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because I want to go into the book. Nevertheless, we persisted. 48 voices of defiance, strength, and courage. So you've come out with this book that is really a collection of inspiring stories, different people from all walks of life around the world. But there's one quote in the beginning of the book that really stuck out for me, and it was this: to go to your why do we look to the women. It's just an interesting stat that I didn't know off the top of my head. Over the course of our nation's history, this is America, we have had nearly 2,000 men in the Senate, but only 50 women. And 21 of those women are serving today. 2,000 men and 50 women. Let me tell you something. If that was a nightclub, it would have been shut down a long time ago. Like,
Totally.
that
Bad
is
situation.
That is a bad ratio.
Bad numbers.
I've been to gay clubs that have better ratios of men to women.
Yeah, well, we are
This
up
is something
to
that needs to
23
change.
since
Right.
it came out. But it is an unbelievable situation. Of course, the name for the book, and it's really not, I wrote one piece in this book, but this is the voices of people across America. 48, many of them very young, who overcame obstacles. And of course, the name came from what happened to my colleague when she was shut down, Elizabeth Warren, shut down for speaking her mind, and was told she had been warned, and then was told nevertheless she persisted.
Yes.
And literally, that was supposed to end it. It began it. A week later, 100 people got tattoos on their arms in Minnesota that said, nevertheless we persisted. So these stories are stories of like a kid who was in college and was a champion hurdler, and what happens to him? He gets paralyzed. He gets in a car accident, and he ends up teaching other kids how to play wheelchair basketball. Or one of my favorites, a girl named Amy Chu, who goes to high school in Iowa. She played soccer in California. They don't have a girls' team. She gets on the boys' team. Then she told it's not safe for her to be on the team. She sues the school district, and then, talk about a dress down, at the post-prom party, is criticized by a school board member. She then ends up graduating from the high school, goes to New York, and then years later, she is invited back to the school by the same principal, by the same soccer coach, for the dedication of the new soccer field, and she gets to meet the girls on the new soccer team.
Wow.
So these are stories of resilience.
Would you say that is your hope and your current vision for the Democrats and the Democratic Party, is you are hoping to persist despite how it may seem? Because it seems like the odds are all stacked against you, at least until the midterms. You're hoping people will turn out. How would you hope for people to persist in a time when it seems like the Democrats are helpless?
Well, you started today talking about President Obama, and that speech was beautiful. And one of the things he said in that speech was the biggest threat to our democracy is cynicism. And the stories of these 48 people are not stories of cynicism. They're stories of optimism. And what I have seen across this country, from the day after that inauguration when millions of people marched, to the next day when 6,000 women signed up for office, to day 9 when people spontaneously showed up at the airports to protest against that mean-spirited refugee order. They even showed up at non-international airports. To day 100, the March for Science, my favorite sign, what do we want science? When do we want it? After peer review. You go through and you see this march to Doug Jones' election in Alabama, a complete victory for dignity and decency. This is a story of people rising up and not just resisting, but insisting on a better way forward. And it is not just Democrats, it is independents, it is moderate Republicans. So that's what's given me faith going into this midterm, this check and balance, this civility, this dignity that people see. And that's what these stories are about, that the resilience of the American people that we've seen time and time again through history. This is the moment to vote.
Thank you so much for being on the show. Nevertheless, We Persisted is available now. Senator Amy Klobuchar, everybody.